So this is a quick video. It's going to try to help people understand what is beyond good and evil, the concept that is beyond good and evil that Nietzsche introduced about 100 plus years ago. I'm going to start by first, I'm going to say, in 2014, late 2014, the late fall of 2014, early January 2015, when I was experiencing symptoms of madness and having deep thoughts, I wrote about how God's first mistake was consciousness. And then I also wrote that God abandoned man or mankind or humankind when humankind took God's laws and made it his or her own. And by that I mean, first mistake is consciousness. And by that I mean consciousness was God's first mistake because God supposedly assumed consciousness is always supposed to act rational with knowledge, laws, and information. And by that I mean, if God assumed that genetically engineering apes DNA into an intellectual sentient being, those beings should be able to act in accordance with law, reason, and knowledge based off consciousness evolved into a rational consciousness that's able to understand, grasp information, knowledge, and laws and stuff like that. So that was the most likely God's first mistake. And I also wrote about how God abandoned mankind when mankind supposedly took God's laws and turned into his own. And by that I mean, for example, we have the Torah. The Torah exists. Within the Torah, there's the Ten Commandments. Supposedly the Ten Commandments came from God and was given to man to help them evolve. But yet, man have found ways to not live in accordance with the Ten Commandments, and also found ways to use the Ten Commandments for his or her own self-interest and self-interest and self-deeds. And so that's what that argument was saying. And so I'm going to help you understand what is beyond good and evil. Within our reality, most people are occupied with good and evil. Good is a perspective, a rational argument against certain actions, deeds, and behavior. And evil is supposedly certain action, deeds, and behavior. And so the concept of good and evil comes from the concept of intellectual being observing certain actions, deeds, and behavior, and arguing those actions, deeds, and behaviors to be unhealthy based off the effects and the consequences that are attached to this action, deeds, and behavior. And so if God created mankind, then God most likely looked down on earth and saw mankind interacting with one another and said, these behaviors are evil because these behaviors cannot lead to peace, happiness, love, friendship, or utopia. Which means if mankind continues to act and behave in this manner, peace cannot be achieved, a utopia cannot be achieved, happiness for everyone on the earth cannot be achieved, and friendship and love and understanding cannot be achieved based off these certain actions. And so these actions has to be evil. And because God was looking down from his own perspective, God's perspective became the definition of good and evil on the earth. And so, and by that I mean God's perspective to his authors of his divine text became good and evil on the surface of the earth. And so that is basically how the concept of good and evil came into existence on the surface of the earth. And so evil is basically irrational actions that are harmful and dangerous to human beings. And by that I mean, thou shalt not kill. Killing another human being is violent, irrational actions. And yet, killing in self-defense is not. So even though killing is a violent, irrational action that cannot lead to peace or utopia, killing in self-defense can also be formed within the Bible, which means killing in self-defense is justifiable, even though killing technically is one of the laws in the 10th commandment that thou shalt not kill. And so that's one of the ways I'm talking about how humankind has found ways to use the laws for their own self-interest and their own self desires and stuff like that. And so to understand the concept that is beyond good and evil, you have to understand the concept, the mindset that is able to grasp what good and evil is within the physical reality, and able to dissect and analyze those two concepts to see if they are thoroughly absolute or thoroughly what they say they are. So I took the time, went through what is good and what is evil. Supposedly, stealing is evil because it's not healthy. Lying is evil, it's not healthy. Killing is evil. Greed is evil. Abuse is evil. Oppression is evil. Slavery is evil. Within the Bible, being gay, bisexual, a queer, what's it called? A transgender is supposed to be an abomination, so that is evil too, from that perspective. And so, as I analyze all the things that is evil, I found that sex also, pleasure is evil. Drinking a lot is evil, drinking is evil, and stuff like that. So when I analyze all the things that were supposedly evil, that supposedly have law against within the Bible, because if there's a law against something, it means that action is not okay. Because if that action was okay, there will be no laws against it. So the fact that there's a law saying do not do this and that, it means that that action technically is not okay, which means that action technically is evil or unhealthy for you. And so the fact that there's a law that says thou shalt not kill, it also means that that action is a part of human nature. Because if that action wasn't a part of human nature, there would be no laws against that action. So because there exist laws that tell us not to do certain things, it means that those things are also a part of human nature, which means humans are capable of doing those things, and humans are able to do those things, and humans are able to do those things instinctively at times too. That's why having law against something means. And so when I analyze the concept of evil, and I analyze the concept that is good, I found within the concept that is good some biases, and I found within the concept that is evil some things that technically is not evil. And by that I mean, there's an argument that say drinking supposedly is evil. There's an argument that say sex is evil. There's an argument that say pleasure is evil, because those things, human beings cannot cannot control those things. Human beings cannot enjoy those things without acting irrational or hateful or greedy and stuff like that. So those things supposedly are evil because it leads to human being acting irrational, hateful, violent, biased, abusive. So you have to accept that those things are evil because human beings are unable to act healthy under the influence of those things. So those are some of the arguments against certain things that is supposedly evil, like drinking, pleasure, and stuff like that. And so when I analyze the two concepts, I find that there is some biases within the concept that is good, and there's some lies within the concept that is evil. And so after I dissected the two concepts, I came to the conclusion of something that is beyond those two concepts. And for that I mean, for example, I argue if a human being strives every day to be kind, honest, fair, understanding, compassionate, friendly, loving, creative, and intellectual within his or her physical reality, they strive every day to be those things, then that person, it really shouldn't matter if that person is gay or heterosexual, or if that person is bisexual, because if somebody is striving every day to be fair, kind, honest, compassionate, understanding, friendly, loving, creative, and intellectual within the physical reality, that person's behavior, that person's thought process, that person's actions, all those things will be healthy. So even if that person is gay or not, that person will still be a healthy being. So that person being gay or not should not matter, because that person can be a healthy being and still be gay or bisexual. And so the fact that being gay and bisexual is supposedly evil and abomination means good has some lies within it, and good has some biases within it. Because a gay human being is capable of striving to be fair, kind, honest, friendly, understanding, compassionate, creative, intellectual, and loving within his or her physical reality. And so long as they are striving to be those things every day, their actions, their deeds, their thought process, their behavior within the physical reality will all be healthy. And if everybody was to strive to be those things on Earth, there will be, the Earth will most likely evolve into a utopic world where there is happiness, joy, love, understanding, freedom, and everybody will be able to enjoy the best aspect of life. And so the fact that supposedly being an LGBTQ person is abomination or something evil, according to good, means that that concept of good is not absolute, because human beings can be LGBTQ person can also be a healthy being. Alien can also be a healthy being within the physical reality and still be an LGBTQ person. And so good has some biases within it. And because good has some biases within it, good also has to be criticized. Because good understanding of reality is not completely terrible. Good understanding of biology is not completely absolute, because there's some biases and some lies within it. And another example too is sex, pleasure, liquor, and modern day example, smoking weed. If I'm an honest, kind, understanding, compassionate, fair, friendly, loving, intellectual, and creative person under the influence of weed, then smoking weed is not unhealthy for me. If I can be all those things under the influence of weed, I am still a healthy person, which means I'm able to control or use the what's it called, the effects of weed to give birth to healthy things and still be a healthy person. So weed is not affecting me in a negative way. If weed is not affecting me in a negative way, or if alcohol do not affect me in a negative way, then me drinking alcohol or me smoking weed technically is not unhealthy. Which means if a concept that's supposedly a good concept is arguing that smoking weed or me drinking alcohol is unhealthy, is dangerous, then that concept is also not absolute, because I am capable of being a kind, a honest, a fair, a compassionate, a understanding, a friendly, a loving, a creative, and an intellectual person under the influence of weed. So any concept that say smoking weed or drinking liquor is unhealthy for a human being is not absolute, because I am a human being and I'm capable of being a healthy human being under the influence of weed. So that's another example of biases being in good. And so, and another thing too is sex. Sex pleasure technically it's not unhealthy. Human beings reproduce through sex. Pleasuring yourself is healthy. It makes you feel good. When people are in a happy state of mind, they don't do crazy stuff. When people are happy, they express love, they express kindness, they express friendship and stuff like that. So you can't tell me sex is unhealthy for human beings if it's possible for human beings to have sex and enjoy sex and still be healthy. So long as sex, so long as somebody is not raping somebody, or somebody is not abusing somebody, or somebody is not what's it called, taking advantage of somebody or deceiving somebody. Those things does not, so long as people are not doing those things, sex is healthy. Sex can also be healthy. Sex can also be a healthy way, not just for reproduction, but a healthy way of expressing yourself, or expressing your feelings towards somebody, or expressing your love for somebody. And a good example of that is in the animal kingdom, the bonobos. The bonobos have sex, multiple times a day. And the society is more peaceful than the chimp society. And so even sex and pleasure that good may be arguing are unhealthy can also be healthy, all based off a person's perspective or understanding of reality. Or a person challenging his or herself to live in accordance with honesty, fairness, compassion, understanding, honesty, fairness, compassion, understanding. What's the fifth one? Honesty, friendship, love, creativity, creative mind, intellectual mind. If human beings just strive to be those things, sex, them having multiple sex multiple times a day, can also be healthy. They're supposedly choosing to be in an open relationship, supposedly can be healthy too, so long as you're not deceiving your partner, or lying to your partner, or taking advantage of your partner. So long as you're honest, it can still be healthy. And so this concept that supposedly religion or religious authors have given us, the concept of good, is not absolute, because within the argument that is evil, we have pleasure, we have materialistic things, we have drinks, liquor, stuff like that. We have sexual orientation. All those stuff are not totally unhealthy. Those stuff is a part of human biology. Those stuff are features of human beings. And so the evil technically have some healthy stuff within it. That could also be healthy features of human beings. The good have some biases within it because of its lack of understanding of human biology, or its lack of understanding of reality, or its lack of understanding that a human being can still be a sadder being, which is what it was biologically designed to be, a sadder, and still be healthy. And so a sadder, somebody who loves sex, somebody who supposedly love pleasure and the good and things that make them feel pleasure, like smoking weed or drinking liquor or stuff like that, or somebody who supposedly is a LGBTQ person, that person can still be healthy in spite of all those things that is supposed to make life unhealthy. And so the argument is, if human beings just strive each day to be a kind, a honest, a fair, a understanding, a compassionate, a friendly and loving, and creative and intellectual person, each day, if human beings just strive to be those things each day, even though perfection is not what's going to be achieved each day, the actions, deeds, and behavior over time will become more healthy for themselves, the people around them, and the society. And once it becomes a habit, it becomes a whole lot easier to do those things. Because habits is a part of human genealogy. Once something becomes habit, it's like it becomes easier for you to do it. You do it without feeling negative emotion, without like crushing yourself, without doubting yourself. That's one of the beauties of human biology. Human beings are able to learn skills and make it into habits and become experts of certain skills. Mimicking also one of the beauties of human biology. And so the concept of beyond good and evil is the concept of a human mind being able to comprehend and grasp good and evil as a concept, and be able to see the flaws within good and evil, and be able to say, okay, good has some flaws, evil has some flaws. This is how you fix the flaws, and this is how you stop focusing and stressing upon good and evil every day. And so, if a human mind is able to grasp that concept, and if a human mind is able to overcome that concept, then that human mind is beyond the concept that is good, and is beyond the concept that is evil. Which means that human mind do not go through each day focusing on good and evil. That human mind goes through each day challenging itself to be beyond good and evil by living a friendly, a kind, a honest, a fair, a compassionate, a understanding, a loving, a creative, intellectual life. Because that human mind has completely defeated the concept that is good and evil that most human beings and beyond human beings are unable to detach themselves from, because they are unable to see the reality of their own unconscious biases and their own biological biases and their own, conscience biases. And so because they're unable to see that reality, they are unable to see beyond good and evil or live beyond good and evil. And so in the Bible you see the God, the biblical God is a very authoritative God. Is a very dictator like God, because his whole goal is to change human biology, human behavior from the irrational, negative, violent, and abusive ways, and turn them into his own biological behavior. That's what the whole concept of Jesus is. Jesus' behavior is different from most human behavior. And so Jesus was the Son of God because Jesus behaved like God. His nature was like God. So his behavior was like God. And so that's why he was claiming to be the Son of God. Because his nature and his behavior and his actions and his deeds were not like the people in his time. And because they were not like the people in his time, he said, if you see me, if you come across me and cross path with me and see my nature and my behavior, you see God, because that is how God supposed to live in heaven. That is supposed to have godly beings live. Godly beings live in accordance with the conscience. Godly beings do not act like the way human beings act on earth. And so God's main goal in the Bible is to alter human DNA by nurturing them to become like Jesus and become like him. So that is the main goal of the Bible, because that's the only way peace can be achieved on earth. That's the only way a utopia can be built on earth. Because if human biology and human cannot overcome the instincts, and human cannot be nurtured to overcome the negative aspect of the biology, then peace, happiness, that can never be achieved on this earth, no matter what. And so the whole concept of God in the Bible and Jesus is the concept of altering human DNA through knowledge, information, and behavior to make human beings detach themselves from the negative aspect of their biological instinct and behavior. And so that is supposedly the whole concept of religion. Religion is trying to help human beings evolve beyond the biological instincts and the biological nature. And so religion is built around the concept of good and evil, because the religious authors was able to grasp that certain human behaviors supposedly are so unhealthy that peace and happiness can never be achieved through this behavior. And so they supposedly try to give human beings, teach human beings ways to overcome those behaviors. But in their attempt, they also created more hate, because they couldn't see beyond their own perspective. They couldn't see beyond their own unconscious biases. And they couldn't see beyond the thoughts or the voices in the head that was guiding them. So they also left arrows like slavery being okay, like oppression being okay, like killing in self-defense being okay, or killing being okay when God does it, or like supposedly being a creature of pleasure being was supposed to not being okay and stuff like that, or being an LGBTQ person being not okay either. So that's the whole concept of good and evil. Good is basically on a foreign perspective on human biology and human nature, an advanced foreign perspective. And evil is supposedly human biology and human nature that is unhealthy from the perspective of an advanced being, or a being whose nature is in accordance with the conscience, which means a being whose nature is completely different from the nature of human beings. And supposedly the fact that human beings has the conscience also means that most likely human being was genetically engineered, and that advanced being try to alter human beings' nature any way possible, because they found out that laws and knowledge and information was not enough. And so human beings also need their conscience to help them become more civil and help them become less barbaric. And so that was most likely how human being got the conscience, because the concept of conscience and Darwinism really doesn't make sense, because even Darwin himself acknowledged that the concept of conscience does not make any sense when it comes to evolution by what's it called, natural selection, because the conscience is something so unique that is completely the opposite of human biology and human nature. And so it didn't make sense to Darwin, so he put it aside and he said it's just something that doesn't fit this theory. And that's basically what the conscience is. And the fact that every human being do not have a conscience is supposedly the proof that the conscience is something that wasn't a part of human beings' biological design. Because if it was part of human being biological design, every human being will have a conscience the same way every bird have wings, even though some birds when useless when it comes to flight, it means that birds' were designed to have wings. So the fact that all birds have wings and all human beings do not have a conscience, it means that the conscience wasn't a part of human biology to start with. And so that's all for that.